Welcome back in, everyone, to Rock Rants. I'm Ryan, joined as always by my co host.
Miggy, I jumped the gun.
And today we're talking about Turnstile. This is my first experience with Turnstile. They were at the Grammys. I was going to say a lot to say, but I don't think that's true. This might be a shorter episode. I do want to start off by saying, those of you who've been listening, appreciate you. I'm checking the numbers. I see you guys have been listening. It's greatly appreciated. So to start, are you familiar with Hideo Kojima? We come from a similar background of video games.
Of course, King Kojima.
Yeah, so obviously you got tons of good games, Metal Gear games, Silent Hill, all that good stuff. But did you know that he also, when he goes and sees new movies, will put reviews out there on Twitter? Have you seen that before?
I feel like I probably have, but I can't remember like a specific one, but I've definitely seen him get a little active.
Yeah, and it's funny because he won't say negative things about movies. He'll say what he likes about them, and then you'll see what I mean. So, I haven't seen the movie Pacific Rim. Seems like it needs to be on my list, though. I would just like to read you a short review by Kojima when he saw Pacific Rim, and then I'm going to read one that when he saw Madam Web. That's how we're going to kick this off, okay? It says, Dear Twitter friends, the following are my comments regarding Pacific Rim. Luckily, I was allowed to tweet it public by WB. I'd never imagined that I would be fortunate enough to see a film like this in my life. The emotional rush I had inside me was the same kind I had when I felt the outer space via 2001 A Space Odyssey, and when I touched the dinosaur in Jurassic Park. Animation and special effects movies and shows that I loved in my childhood days, they all truly exist in the screen. Director Guillermo del Toro offers this spectacular vision of massive kaijus and robots in Pacific Rim. This film was not simply a film to be respected, but most importantly, it let us dream the future of entertainment movies. Pacific Rim is the ultimate otaku film that all of us have always been waiting for. Who are you if you're Japanese and won't watch this? I hope you would accept this inspirational love letter that had traveled across the Pacific, written by director Guillermo del Toro. Now I'd like to read you his review after he saw Madam Web.
I would first like anybody in the comments to tell us what a kaiju and otaku mean, because I would guarantee, unless you have followed from the Twitch side of life, you probably have no idea.
Yeah, let us know. This is his tweet after he saw Madam Web. I saw Madam Web at the theater. That's it. That's it. I'm giving you this background because I'd like to let you know I listened to Turnstile. I listened to it.
Send tweet.
And that's where I'm going to start. I listened to Turnstile. So, to kick things off, we listened to their newest album, Never Enough. They were nominated for 2 Grammys this year, and they won both of them. So they've been nominated for 7 Grammys in this band's lifetime. They formed in, I believe, 2010 as like a hardcore punk group. They've had pretty much the same lineup. They've had two changes when it comes to the members, but for the most part, it stayed pretty consistent. And yeah, they won Best Metal Performance for the song Birds and Best Rock Album for the album that we're going to be talking about today. What do you think? What did you think when you listened to it?
Dude, it sucked. I don't know how to neatly wrap this up in a bow and serve it to you on Christmas morning in a way that'll make you excited to open it, because I can't. This album sucked, mostly by way of just it felt super uninspired, and I'm gonna utilize a lot of the usual talking points I do with these albums in terms of pros and cons. But what intrigued me so much about Turnstile is it is so much the epitome of bland radio metal. I won't say rock necessarily. Well, I guess maybe we'll lump that in. But either way, bland radio metal, where it's not the most horrendous macaroni art your kid ever brought home and you have to pretend that it's good and hang it up on the fridge, but you still don't want to hang it up on the fridge. You're just like, okay, this is one of many that you'll make, and it's disappointing to pair this lovely meal with the wine that it's served with, which was the Grammy or the whichever award it is. Because I think what probably takes this album down so much for me, aside from the fact that it is just day one metal is that it is so highly applauded by the scene and by what I'm going to refer to as the normie culture, even though I don't mean that in a derogative way. Maybe I do. Who knows? But it's to pair it with the idea that this is what we are considering the headline of metal right now. That's infuriating to me because I get that not everybody needs to be underground. I get that not everything can be this new hit thing you've never heard or seen before. But I know for damn sure that not everything could be this, or we're just going to be stuck in an era where we have 15 different bands that are all playing the same thing.
Yeah, I can see that. And when you said how it's so like critically acclaimed and highly acclaimed and all that because of how many Grammy nominations and they won 2 of them and this and that, I think this is suffering from the same thing that Sleep Token did for me. So when I heard like best metal performance, it beat out Spirit Box and Dream Theater and whoever else was nominated. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it beat out, I think Ghost beat out all those other guys. I don't know why. I always said I never paid attention to the Grammys, but here I am paying attention to the Grammys. I had higher expectations and I think different ones because when I hear best metal performance, I didn't expect the kind of music that I heard listening to this album. And it's this, I'm not going to say it sucked. When I messaged you before and said that I didn't like it, it was definitely because I had the wrong impression. So it's like the first time I heard Sleep Token. They have all these crazy runes and symbols. Or I saw what they looked like beforehand with their masks and they wore all black and all the metal publishers and stuff were hyping them up back when I had Twitter, and then I listened to Sleep Token and I heard like synthesizers and, you know, weird beats and all this stuff, and I did not like Sleep Token when I first heard them, but knowing what to expect later on, that's when they kind of grew on me, probably a year later after I first listened to them. I think Turnstile might be in a similar category, somewhat.
So you like bad music?
Wait, what did you tell me about Sleep Token recently?
You're capable of warming up to bad music, because my direct comparison to this was this. I said it to you. This will be the worst rated album we have done yet, other than the Velvet Shit Show, and that's because they're not a real band making real music. Ryan, I fancied this. I fancied this to a similar God, and I wish. Oh my God, what is the band that you picked the album for that you were disappointed that I didn't like? It wasn't Starset, I don't think. I think it was the one before that.
We've done Starset.
Deftones.
Oh, Deftones.
Yeah. It was Deftones. This reminds me a bit. That's the one. Audio listeners, he's pointing proudly to his white supremacy shirt right now. But aside from that, when it's a Deftones shirt. We talked on that episode, or rather, I guess I did, about the idea of having these like spacey, ethereal feelings to things and how that can be a very good thing. And I think in Deftones' case, it was a very good thing. I think there were a lot of other things wrong with the Deftones album, but I think the idea of that atmospheric aura that you can put behind it, we're seeing that with a lot of metal right now, it would seem, because I'm catching myself saying that for probably the 3rd or 4th time in our last handful of episodes. But I don't mind that galactic feel. There's something to it, the way you're able to make guitars riff with it, the lyrics you're able to put with it, symbolism, all of that. But it was almost like this whole album was just like, it was just misplaced. They put a puzzle piece where they thought it went, saw it didn't fit, said fuck it, you're there now. And the biggest culprit of this, the biggest offender of this, is the fact that we talked about this a little bit before. Every single song, and maybe this is hyperbole, maybe it's not literally, but most of the songs have an outro to them. And I know what you're thinking, Smiggy, most songs have outros. It's not really a problem now, is it? Yes, dear listener, it is a problem when every single one of them is 90 seconds of white noise, the equivalent of listening to elephant hymns in a fucking in a padded room with no covers and only bright white lights. Eventually you'll go fucking crazy from it, even if those things individually aren't really the worst thing on the planet. They just kind of threw things together, and the outros to every song, the songs are only 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes. You can't have half of the song, 33% of the song, be a fucking outro. It's insane.
Yeah, and my new job requires a lot of reading. The job I was doing beforehand, I could listen to music all day and it didn't bother me what kind it was. When I'm reading, I can't listen to like this, or you know what I mean, the stuff we would normally listen to. So I've been on lo-fi beats a lot. This reminded me, their outros and stuff like that, or the weird parts in the middle where it just slows down. It reminded me of lo-fi beats, but without the beat to it. It just had like the weird spacey, floaty kind of music, and that's it. And there was nothing else going on to it. I mentioned the song, what's it called, Sunflower or Sun. I took notes, but they're all together. Something with sun shower.
Sun shower, yeah.
That song started off really good. It has a little bit slower intro, I'm pretty sure. It got really good, and the last, I think, minute and a half to 2 minutes of it is like just the spacey, dreamy sound without a beat, and I'm pretty sure that's where it sounds like a recorder to me.
Yeah.
You know, like the recorder that you play in like the fourth grade, where they teach you music.
Very Crush 40, Matchbox 20, that early 2000 style of just thrash, shred, alt rock. The beginning of this is great.
So that's why I said I was really disappointed when I first heard the album, but then when I knew what to expect and kind of went back to it, the faster kind of hardcore punk that it said they started off as, I enjoyed those songs. I call them, it reminds me of stuff that will be on a Tony Hawk game. So I put in my notes, I like their Tony Hawk songs.
Yes, actually, that's the perfect way to put. Yeah, I like the Tony Hawk song. I fast forwarded to a random timestamp here, and I am now in the Andre 3000 flute album.
Yeah, that's
what happened.
It's something like that. It sounded like a recorder.
What I mean, though, is like this is like it's. What is the proper way to say this? The album, the symphony, the composition of it is super polished, right? Like the instruments sound good, the vocals sound good, the rhythm sounds good. I liken this again to the idea of you have all the puzzle pieces, you chose. And I even differentiate it from what I've said this about other bands, because it feels like sometimes you put a puzzle piece in a place and you think it works, you legitimately think that's the right spot, and I don't know how a puzzle fits this analogy, but you really think you did the right thing and it just doesn't hit with people. That's one thing. It feels like with this, it's the notion of how did this make it through a whole social media team, even though we know the answer to that because usually it's one fuck off 18-year-old that doesn't care. But for this, how does this get through multiple sets of eyes and ears and be like, you know what if 50% of every song wasn't a fucking song? And like you said, with lo-fi, it doesn't have the beat to it. There's no difference in it. It is literally, it's like when you see the like prank TikToks or Instagram reels where it's like wait for the beat to drop, but the video just keeps looping. Yeah. And you're just sitting like a jackass for 90 seconds. Oh, it's gonna drop this time. No, it's not. It never will. And it never does with this album. It's polished production with insanely disorganized. However, I'm supposed to say this, but the individual pieces sound really good. They're organized like shit, and the songwriting itself is very, very bland. The production is clean and polished, but it strips away what you could have by way of grit and aggression in a good way, character to it even. It's mixed definitively. We love that. But when every track sounds like an over-polished fucking radio edit, it's uninspired is the best way I can say it from that perspective.
Yeah, and it's not just a Turnstile thing, because we've talked about Sleep Token on here several times, even had an entire episode. It's well known that I like Sleep Token and their music, but my favorite song by them, The Summoning, it starts off so good, and it ends so good on this jazzy little outro that you wouldn't expect to blend with the start of the song, but there is a 90-second synth part in the middle where they're just holding down like 3 chords for a really long time before, like it ruins the song for me. So it's not just a Turnstile thing. I hate that my favorite Sleep Token song does it. As much as I love Starset, they have minute and a half long outros at the end that you can just skip, and I do when they're on. When it gets to that part, I just skip to the next one. But I don't know. There's just, maybe it's because I feel like Starset and Sleep Token and stuff like that change it up and take enough risks to where this one was pretty straightforward on a lot of their stuff. And then they're ending with this just bland, not enjoyable, floaty song sound.
So what I would like to posit is this question, and it both has to deal with Turnstile and not. It's more of an idea of why we accept things the way that they are, I guess is the best way to say it. And I had mentioned this briefly right before we started recording, but whenever we were doing the stage versus Hail to the King, the Avenged Sevenfold Battle of the Bands, Battle of the Albums, rather. Um, we eventually kind of boiled it down to what our arguments were, and it was me trying to get you to give a shit about the best bland album, and you trying to get me to give a shit about the worst progressive album. And those both carry a good merit to why they are produced the way they are produced. Obviously, a bunch of my points were this is very true to what traditional metal is. It's paying homage to a bunch of these bands. A bunch of shit, looking back a week later, I believe it, but I don't agree with it, if I'm being honest. But it brings me to my point of what place does an album like this even have in the scene? Because obviously, obviously it won Grammys for things, right? It's got decent enough reviews by enough people, and we talk about the idea all the time that there has to be music like this to appeal to the most broad and general audience possible. That, along with the idea that we do live in the quote unquote TikTok age, where media of all forms is so quick to live and die. Everything, it's 15 minutes of fame here, 15 minutes of fame here, move on to the next. Is there, and does there need to be some happy balance in there to what we can consider the new normal? So what I mean by that, not to keep rambling, is does an album like this, why am I sitting here right now on this podcast pretending that I give a fuck about how bad this album is? Because the album's bad. I'm not going to turn it back on after we're done with this. This is not an album I'm going to go back and give another chance. I think this is just bad because of how bland it is, because it took no risks, and the risks that it did take are wildly misplaced. So what is it about music like this that strikes the ears of so many quote unquote normies so hard that we have to live through this stupid shit and pretend like this needs to exist just because it's the middle?
Now, see, I kind of disagree because one of the first messages I sent you about this album, because we do save our talks for the like when we record, but we say small things here and there. I told you that I was like, I'm already bored. I think I said I'm 45 seconds in and I'm bored. And like I said in the beginning, I had those wrong expectations, but listening to it a second and third time, knowing what to expect, there were things I took out of there that I appreciated. So I don't know much about like punk music in general, but the little bit that I've heard, it's just like smashing on like 2 or 3 chords throughout the song while some guy yells about, injustice, which is cool. I like that. But I like the guitar riffs in here. I think some of their songs have really cool riffs that stick in my head that they're not overly complicated, but they get the job done and they're punchy, and I kind of liked that about it. So, going back through, there are some things that I picked up that I liked. Am I going to turn this back on in the future? Probably not. Probably, but I said the same thing about Sleep Token years ago. So I don't know. I could. Maybe I want to, learn something simpler on guitar. That's not to say all this stuff's easy, but the riff that I'm playing in my head right now, yeah, it's an easier one. But I think to answer your question, it can't all be technical, proggy, heavy, amazing vocals all the time. To me, anyway. I'm not the biggest fan of the Ramones, but I think the Ramones have their place in time, and there's something to enjoy about them. They only played 3 chords per song, and they played them really fast, and he wasn't the best vocalist in the world.
AC/DC
but
made a career off of that shit.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it has its place. Maybe its place isn't with me all the time, but I do think it needs to be there.
So let me rephrase a little bit, because I do agree. I think me saying that it shouldn't exist solely because I don't like it is way too far in the other direction. I guess more so how I should be shaping this question is why why is this considered good? Why is this the thing that's winning Grammys? And I say this knowing that, like, again, my favorite band is Avenged Sevenfold. I totally understand why they are not a larger band than they are. They play around with AI. They do weird themes with their albums sometimes, like The Stage or like A Little Piece of Heaven, the song. I get why they're in the space that they're in. And again, like you said, you need bands like that. But why is something like this, which I legitimately, and I try very hard to be open-minded about, let people like what they like. Everything's subjective. Music specifically, very subjective. This, to me, it's almost disappointing to learn that this is what the general populace of the people who enjoy the music that we listen to, this is what they're looking for. It disappoints me because, yes, I personally have a bias against this because I think this album is hot shit, but I can't really even get there in my brain to see why people, not why they like it. Because, like you said, there's individual pieces. The guitar works pretty good. Again, I even said as much as this is an extremely polished album. The production value is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's just rearranged the puzzle pieces. But I can't even wrap my head around why this, as opposed to something like System of a Down or, your Corns of the world. Why the fuck did this make it to the top? Because I just can't wrap my head around why people find this specific album to be Grammy worthy.
Before I answer your question,
it's kind of disappointing.
You said that you hate this album. Is it worse than Scars on Broadway for you? Killing Spree that we did?
I think my rating at the end will say yes.
Okay.
I think...
Is this worse than Måneskin? Because you hated that one.
I did. Because I think it's so hard to answer that because I'm a cuck and I like to sit on the fence. No, I don't. I like to be mean on this podcast. I think the problem with me saying yes or no directly to that is I dislike those 3 albums all for different reasons. I dislike this album because I see the potential in it. But I think not only did they place the puzzle pieces wrong, I think they purposely did it and still right now think they did it right. As opposed to, again, I'm not even sure if this is true, but I'm just going to throw a lazy example. Let's just say that Avenged Sevenfold didn't like making Hail to the King, which it sounds like to some extent they almost didn't. But let's just say they didn't like making Hail to the King. They would then be like, okay, we know what we fucked up here and we're going to work to do something different or make it better or change it or whatever, but we tried. Whereas again, I think they're sitting here like, no, we did right here. What we did is good. What we did is just good.
Fair enough.
So I think it's just rearranging the puzzle pieces for them. Whereas with Scars on Broadway, I got caught in that loop of just wanting it to be System of a Down and it just isn't. So I think I gave that too much criticism at the time. And it's not parody, but it's more towards the Young Gravies of the world than it is the Metallicas of the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like they sing about injustice and politics and all that too, but then you have, what is it?
Satan
Tony
Hussein.
Danza cuts in line, old school Hollywood, washed up. I know that system, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And then Måneskin was I just didn't like them. Maybe they are good, maybe they're not. I don't know. I just personally didn't like. I thought that guy's voice was so fucking annoying. I thought the whole production of that was just bad. With this, I think it's the worst because I see the potential and I see them, at least in my brain, I see them spitting in the face of it.
Fair enough. Sorry, that just popped into my head and I was wondering where it would lay in that ranking order. But to answer your question about why this one, why the Grammy nominations, I looked on Spotify, I think it's over 2 million monthly listeners. To answer your question, I have no idea. I grew up listening to late 90s to early 2000s country because that's what my mom listened to. And when we were in the car, my mom controlled the radio, so I listened to country. I stopped listening to country a long time ago, but that doesn't mean I don't hear some of the country artists that are around now. Why, when Luke Bryan came to town, did he sell out a football stadium 2 nights in a row a few years ago? Why is Jelly Roll the one who is blowing up now? Because I've listened to Luke Bryan, and I tried listening to Jelly Roll. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Another genre of music that I don't really know much about is like rap and hip-hop and stuff like that. Kendrick Lamar had a really good Super Bowl halftime show. I don't know why he's massive when other people aren't, if that makes sense. I don't know why Turnstile is huge when there are other punk bands that I'm sure switch it up a little bit and aren't just strictly punk like these guys aren't, but they're not as big as Turnstile. Do you think some of it's luck of the draw? I mean, why are certain Twitch streamers and YouTubers huge?
Yeah.
When others who probably put in so much more effort aren't?
That is exactly 1,000% the first thing that popped into my brain because I even know, even to take that to a smaller scale, of our friend group, and this is not an arrogant flex of any sort, but I was the one that averaged the most views. Whether or not that meant that I was the best streamer of me, you, the other two, Fisty, all the people that we know, is up for debate for other people. I don't really give a shit.
He was.
But I think it was because I had a little bit of luck in all of it, because I had the built-in first few viewers, people that were loud enough to help promote me, this, that, the other. So I think you do have to get lucky, but I do also think in the music industry, it is capitalizing on that luck, because in streaming, you can just get a couple thousand 12-year-olds to want to give you $5 a month off their parents' credit card. And that is different than hypnotizing usually grown adults or people that are looking for the emotional investment into your music, and they have 8 billion other choices to go to if they don't like your band. So I think it is definitely partially luck, but also capitalizing with skill and strategy on that luck. But that I guess what I'm struggling, and this doesn't even really take our conversation any further, but that's what I was thinking too, is things like Jelly Roll or Luke Bryan, or the rap one that I would have used is like Drake had that
Or Drake, yeah.
10-year run where he was just everywhere. And it's like, I do get that. I don't like it. I don't like Drake's music, but I kind of understood, like, he embodied what rap at the time, and I guess still is. He was on every song with Lil Wayne, who was on every song. He was Mr. Loverboy. He was the pretty light-skinned man that was going to steal your girlfriend. He made all the right moves at all the right times, even though he's a piece of shit. But he did all the right things at all the right time and capitalized on that. I just don't see that with Turnstile. And the reason I'm hawking on this so heavily is because obviously the median, the mean, whichever proper term here, the middle ground is what dictates what we get the most of, because that's what the most people like. And if metal, I'm over exaggerating this point for sure, but if what the middle ground of metal fans like is this, I'm simply not looking forward to getting more of this. Whereas with bands like Maneskin or whatever, I just don't have to listen to them. They are the more niche bands. And I get, like, I don't have to listen to Turnstile or Radio Rock either. I get that. But like, bands aren't modeling themselves after Maneskin necessarily. They're not modeling themselves after Avenged Sevenfold. They're modeling themselves after the Metallicas, after the Guns N' Roses, the New Age now, the Sleep Tokens, the Turnstiles, the half of the bands that we have covered on this podcast. And every time I have come back with a negative review of an album, I've been like, you know what? They tried, or I can see the vision here. I can see what group of people is going to connect with this. This literally, and I know it's not AI, and I'm not accusing it of being AI, but this is literally like, I typed into fucking Chat GPT, give me a metal song made in 2021 with a little bit of a galactic tone to it, and then fuck up the end of every song.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
that's what I would get out of this.
That's what I mean. I like the Tony Hawk songs. I like the ones that could be on there. Right before we listened to this, I'm like, what did they sound like in 2010? So I went back and just put on a couple of their older songs, and that's what they sounded like back then, was the fast-paced energy. You know, the guy's voice didn't sound so echoey all the time, which I think was a production choice. I don't know if you noticed that too, but it sounded like he was singing in a cave the entire album. It didn't sound like that, but it was kind of dirtier. Like you said, the production value wasn't as high, but I kind of liked it, and I liked the way that it sounded then. I can see their evolution into, you know, toning it down a little bit and experimenting and everything. I just don't think I liked all of their experimentation. I put that, I think is the third song on the album, looking through my notes. Yeah, I said that I appreciate that they're trying to change it up, but they sound like the Police. You know that, like, 70s band?
Yeah.
It sounded like Message in a Bottle, or, you know, whatever, those sort of songs. Which, the Police, great band, not for me.
Right.
I'm not super into them. I think Stuart Copeland's an awesome drummer, and he did the music for Spyro, which makes him great, but...
Oh, we love that.
Yeah, but as far as their music goes, I don't want people imitating them. I'm not a big fan. So
Yeah.
I can appreciate them experimenting and branching out from just trying to sound like a punk group now, but I don't know. It just didn't hit the mark for me on this one. And that's what I keep trying to say, is there are certain things I did like, but I think the things I disliked outweighed that.
Yeah, and I did some, albeit not deep research, but I was kind of of the same ilk, because I was like, I've seen, obviously the band's been around for a little bit, and I was like, what is this normal for them? Because if it is, then that sucks. To me, that sucks. But it did seem like, and again, an inexperienced listener here of Turnstile, but it did seem like there was a huge loss in, I guess, like, momentum's not the way to say it, but like an energy to it, an urgency to it. It
Agree
almost
with
seemed
that.
like a trademark to their style, like you were saying, is those blistering riffs or the intensity in his voice. It was a true punk rock, shred it out, bash it out kind of thing. And it's just not in this album, which instead they just kind of dissolve into these drawn out, again, these like electronic atmospheric outros, ambient, I guess is the proper word. And it does everything that it possibly can to make sure that you're not excited for the next song. And not everything has to lead you in, kicking down the doors and all of that. Like you said, it's fine to experiment. I advocate experimenting on these albums all the time.
Hmm.
But they did a weird, they almost experimented without actually doing the experiments. Like they just put all the shit on the table and just kind of let it sit there. They're like, well, this is, we made this. It's like, well, you didn't make anything. It's all the ingredients are there. You didn't make anything though.
Here's my thoughts about it. There are 4 or 5 songs that I do like. If I went to go see another band and Turnstile was opening or co-headlining, I wouldn't be upset. I would still see these guys live and watch their show, and when their chaotic, energetic songs came on, I'd be really hyped for it. And then when they played their synthesizer, recorder, flute outro, might lose the momentum a little bit. But the way you just described that as atmospheric electronic punk sounds like a really cool blend. So I will say when Turnstile
is right.
when Turnstile comes out with another album, because it doesn't sound like this is a band that stays stagnant and just sticks with one thing. Kind of how we talked about Avenged Sevenfold. They're changing up their sound a lot. Maybe not that drastic from Turnstile, but when they put out new music, I'll listen to it. I'll see if maybe they were experimenting and maybe they've perfected or found something that they didn't for this album. So that's what I mean. I don't hate it, but I did think a lot of it was bland. I wrote in my notes, I can't remember if I said this already or not, I compared it to when we did Linkin Park, The Emptiness Machine. They had a song called Cut the Bridge that I said just sounded like was missing something. I don't know what it was missing, but it sounded like something wasn't there.
Yeah.
They left out an important ingredient, and it seems like Turnstile did that on quite a few of these songs that I didn't like. But, like I said, I want to see what else they do. I also want to ask you, are we just, old? Do you think? Are we old? Could that be it?
See, I almost want to say, excuse me. I almost want to say yes, but I was having this inner dialogue with myself earlier because again, as often as I come on here and I just hate on the albums that we do, because a lot of them in my brain, at least the first time I listen to them, do kind of suck, and then I end up liking a lot of them. This is the first time I have ever truly come out of listening to an album more than once feeling like, again, and I think why I'm judging them so heavily is again because they are so lauded in their field. Like they won Grammys. This is not a fucking Grammy winning band to me. If you brought this to me in the shell of, hey, here's another band that your dad listens to and they're good, try them out. I'd probably be like, okay, I still don't love this, but sure, like I get it. I understand why somebody would listen to this, but it's because that the people have it so high, and I'm like, it's just, I don't, and I know I'm being unreasonable because again, it's subjective, but I don't see what you're seeing. I don't see what other people are seeing, and I don't want to, because if that's the train of thought, because again, what scares the hell out of me is if we are going to consider this the norm, that scares me because I don't think that I don't share the feeling that their next album is going to be an improvement. There again, a lot of the bands that we do, it feels like, okay, we try, like actually like the stage going into Life Is But a Dream. I didn't like the stage. You thought the stage was great. Probably somewhere in the middle. But what it did is lay an excellent foundation for Life Is But a Dream to be out there and as good as it is.
You don't think this lays a foundation?
I don't. And I could very easily be proven wrong. Clearly, they're as big as they are with enough people for a reason, and I could just be old man yelling at clouds here. But I to answer your actual question is I almost want to say I'm being too young because I feel like our generation, I guess more so the generations below us, Zoomers and Gen Z, whatever. That is said the same thing twice, but whatever they are.
Gen Alpha.
There we go. Those again, they're more of that. We need everything to be different every single time because media is so accessible that you can't show me. Like, imagine, are you familiar with like the old YouTube videos of old Greg?
Oh yeah.
Like, imagine old Greg coming out now, and maybe old Greg's a bad example because that just is really funny. But imagine old Greg coming out now. It would have been a massive meme for about a week, and then it would have died off. Same thing with Harambe. Same thing with the fucking Thai pygmy hippo. What was it? The Mudang. Same thing with
Oh
all
yeah.
this shit. We need things to be so different so often that I think we crave that. I'm no different. I know that that's a flaw of mine when I review some of these things, and I try to put that aside. But this to me screams radio rock, which screams to me. I'm not going to call it dad rock because I don't think that's appropriate. Um, but I will consider it radio rock, which I lump almost as a subgenre of dad rock because our generation isn't listening to the radio. Our generation isn't listening to something for the sake of listening to it or watching something for the sake of watching it. You want that next big thing. You always want that dopamine hit, which is not reasonable. I would like to end my statement by saying I completely understand it's not reasonable and that's not the way the world should work. If everything was a 10 out of 10, you would never appreciate or understand what a 5 out of 10 would literally make you kill yourself because you wouldn't know what the difference is. So there's a balance in there somewhere. But I almost think I'm being too young because I do want this to be different than just something I can turn on my local radio station and hear.
That's fair.
So to being too old, maybe in my mindset of I'm not willing to budge, but I don't think for the reasons you were implying.
Yeah, I was only asking because like I had this thought when all these metal and rock festivals are being announced every year. And don't get me wrong, this is the stuff I grew up listening to. But like I think it was Incarceration they announced, and one of the big top main headliners one of the days is Disturbed. Okay, I listened to Disturbed in the early 2000s, but when is it time to move on? Like when? Why is Disturbed, and as much as I love them, Korn, and all of these groups still the headliners for these huge shows? I thought it was awesome when Louder Than Life in Louisville, they had, I don't know if they were the actual headliners, but at the top of the bill they had like Bring Me the Horizon and Knocked Loose and Slaughter to Prevail and all of these like newer acts anyway that aren't from the mid to late 90s. And I'm just like, it's cool. We got to pass the torch somehow. So I was wondering if we were old because now that the torch is being passed and they're getting popular, are we like, what? Like, this isn't good. But no, you had a good counter argument of why we're not just being old, you know? But then also when I see bands like, oh, finally, a new band like Bring Me the Horizon headlining, and it's like, oh, wait, they've been around for 20 years. Like bands that I consider new still. Turnstile, they've been around for 16 years, you know? So, I don't know.
I think I'm also convincing myself in real time that more of a reason to not like award shows is because it's obviously a popularity contest for good reason. It's the whole idea, but it's the accessibility. So I think I'm even convincing myself in real time that people don't think that Turnstile is the best album of the year or metal perform whatever it won the Grammys for. I don't honestly care. But it's just that it is the thing that is presented to the most people, which I don't know where I
Most
necessarily
palatable.
fall on this next statement. Yeah. Or even just the one that's been the most presented for one reason or another, because they knew to put it on the radio or their manager knew how to push it, whatever the case is, Turnstile or not. But it's almost more of an onus on the metal community, the fans, people like you and I, to voice their opinions more, because I do think that there's an element to this. One, laziness, repackaged as just being comfortable because you listen to what you listen to on the radio, and that's what a lot of people do. Again, that's the baseline. I understand why that's a thing. But I do think there's an element of almost shame to it, because not as much anymore, because people are much more willing to just kind of let you live your life in most places of the internet now. But if I would go up to somebody in 2009 and be like, my favorite band's Avenged Sevenfold, I'm gonna get a weird look from people because they're cringe and a lot of their music sucks or whatever the case is, right? Just not a lot of people loved Avenged at that point. And I wonder how much of it is people just not wanting to look beyond the surface because they're scared of essentially being made fun of for listening to different things or wanting to listen to different things or admitting that they listen to different things. But then I go back to the idea of you only have so many hours in a day to do all the things that you want. can I really blame people for not putting the extra time to find more bands that aren't just the surface radio rock? So the fine balance in there somewhere. I'm mostly just rambling about shit that isn't the album this episode, but it really got me thinking because again, I think this album is so goddamn bad and it won a fucking Grammy and I don't get it. And I don't like that people like this album and I don't agree with them. And I don't care if they don't agree with me because I don't want them to, because I don't want to be friends with those people because it just confuses me, Ryan. And it scares me. To be confused is to be scared. And I just don't get it.
That's fair. Last question before we jump off of here for the day. I agree with you where we're talking about Grammys and award shows just being popularity contests. And this is not to contradict. I looked it up out of genuine curiosity, and this is what I saw just now. And Spotify monthly listeners are not everything when it comes to popularity. Just want to throw that out there. But they had a little over 2 million monthly listeners. Spiritbox had about 3.4 million, so more than they do. Ghost has over 8 million monthly listeners, and Dream Theater had like 1.5 million. So, yeah, they are more popular than like Dream Theater, and I can't remember if there's another nomination, but when it comes to Spiritbox, and especially Ghost, they're actually not as popular in this sense. So why do you think the Grammys chose Turnstile to win the Best Metal Performance? Rock album, I can see. I don't know what the other nominations were, but nominating this as a rock album, I get it. But for Best Metal Performance, when it's up against Spiritbox, Ghost, and Dream Theater, and I do apologize if there's another group that I'm forgetting from the nominations. I could look it up here in a second, but do you think the Grammys even care about metal? Did they just say, like, Turnstile, like a song called Birds, that's cool? Or do you think there was a process behind it?
I think both answers are true. Both ideas are true. I think they don't give a shit about metal. I think you almost kind of nailed it immediately when you said rock album of the year. I could see, because that is obviously the very surface level genre of what we're considering here. But that almost more so, I'm just making this up as I go, but that almost more so to me screams that we are too young, because if things like Spotify aren't the places getting, wait, I'm sorry, did you say that they are getting more listens on Spotify, or they're not?
No, and I forgot the nomination that I forgot was Sleep Token. They were nominated. So the order of least to most listeners on Spotify is Dream Theater, then Turnstile, then Spiritbox, Sleep Token, Ghost. So they're second last.
Second last. So that still makes my point make sense then. It does almost make me feel like we are too young rather than too old, because if it's not getting played on Spotify, well, let's just think for a quick second, who's more likely to use Spotify? Younger people, because it's on your phone, it's on your PC, whatever. Obviously, older people use it too, but I'm thinking even to myself, I use Spotify because, again, it's an app. It's an app that is on your phone, and we are attached to those motherfuckers. My dad uses Apple Music. My mom, I think, just goes on fucking YouTube or something like that. So if you think of the demographic that is using Spotify more, I have no scientific backing to this. So somebody
That's interesting,
feel free to correct me and get fucked, because I won't care. But it does feel like maybe that means more younger people are listening to different things, and the people who are listening to the radio, who are probably more willing to go, oh, what 1059 The X, that's my local rock station, good luck looking that up, pinpoint my location now for nothing. 1059 The X, they're playing that Turnstile song, I'm gonna call in and say I like this song. People our age aren't doing that. People our age aren't clicking the link to take a survey. You know what I mean? Like, whenever we get on the call with customer service and they're like, if you have 30 seconds to blah, 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 bang, I'm clicking that bitch shut. Thank you for your service. Love it. Not helping you the rest of the way here. That's on you to do your job. But my point being, without being so aggressive about it, is that to me almost does say that this is more of that radio rock, and it appeals to the broader audience of who is more willing to be louder about it for things like the traditional award shows.
Interesting point. Yeah, about age demographics and whatnot, something I wouldn't have thought of. So I'm curious. Yeah. That is good to note, though.
I just hate this album so much. I'm looking for any reason to say that this is why it's bad. But no, I do believe that. But like I said, there's no scientific backing to anything I just said. So by all means, do your own research. But I don't know. I mean, I think to kind of sum it up for me is, I'm going to say that this is going to sound really dumb because it's the first album I ever listened to from them. But this is a step back for Turnstile. A step back from what? I guess I don't know. At its worst, it's a band that is just trying way too hard to be eclectic and not hard enough working on the actual organization of your music. And instead of pushing forward with any confidence, the album spreads itself very thin. It's a mishmash of a few moments that really stick. Like you've mentioned some good guitar work. There's a few whatever. There are parts of it that are good. But what could have been seemingly a very exciting new chapter, it almost feels like instead they just ripped a few pages out, said we're starting new. Or actually, I guess more appropriately, they're just taking a detour right now. So I don't know what analogy I need to use here. I hate the album. I don't think it's good. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. I don't have any hope that their next album is going to be any better, but I did admittedly say that I think they have all of the correct pieces. They just need to let go of their own hubris and rearrange them. If they do that, then I think the next album will be great. But I personally don't have faith in that. But that's just one man's opinion.
I am
3 out of 10.
The first thing I said to you was that it was boring. I'm sticking with that because aside from the faster paced songs, I do still think that it's boring. This last time that I listened to it on the way home today, I skipped past quite a bit, especially when songs started to slow down or the song that sounded like The Police. Skip. Plus, I have negative connotations with this album now because I almost got into a car accident on the way home listening to it. So, bad.
Oh.
It was my fault, but,
Bad.
you know, we're going to associate that with Turnstile.
The car accident would never be enough.
Would have just straight off a bridge. But for our ranking system, for anyone new here, 5 is average. Anything below that is obviously bad. Anything above that is slightly better to way above average, depending on where it lands on the scale. I'll give this one a 5. Very average. You know, like I said, the term that I used before was boring. And aside from the couple exceptions, yeah, I'm sticking with it. So it's a 5 for me.
I mean, that is the epitome of average, which is in a nicer way exactly what I've been saying about this album the whole time. So I am actually very curious, commenters, if any of you are here. I very much so would like to know if you enjoyed this album, why.
Tell us why we're right or wrong.
I know I'm asking a lot for a YouTube comment, but be specific. Don't just tell me because music good, because guitar work good. I know the fucking guitar work is good. Listen to the podcast, you freak. But I want to know why. Because I like I said, I try very hard to be open-minded about everything in life because everything's subjective. The only things that matter in life are the things that you assign importance to. I can't put myself in a headspace where I'm somebody that thinks that this is a good thing. So if you are one of those people, maybe get checked, and after you do that, tell me why you're wrong, and I'd be curious.
Sweet. Well, that's it from us. I don't know what's next, but we'll figure it out. We'll do something. Could be a battle of the bands or a battle of the albums or album review.
I'm upset about 2 things. One, I wrote a fire line to diss this album.
What is it?
But I forgot to send myself my notes.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna save that and randomly use that because when I write my notes for the episode, I just have like a template and then I'll just save a copy, whatever. So I'm gonna keep that line in the next episode. Whether or not it fits, because I know I wrote it down. It's like the only thing that's in that document is just that one line.
I can't wait till our next album is like another Baby Metal or Bloody Wood that we both love, and then you just out of nowhere,
I was just talking to
drop a nuke.
Egregious about it. And then I don't remember what the other thing I was upset about. I do know though that I was working through a bit of a sore throat today, and I took like this throat numbing spray to work with me, cough drops, all that, just to get through the day. And I think I used too much. And within the first hour of work, I had drooled on myself because I couldn't feel my mouth.
Oh gosh.
Thank you all for rocking with us. This has been Rock Rant's Turnstile. Never enough. I promise you, it was enough from the very first second. Never want to see it again. Tell us how you feel about it, though. What'll be next? We don't know. You'll find out, though. In the meantime, in between times, thank you for rocking with us. As always, my name is Smiggy, joined by my lovely co-host,
Ryan.
Love you all. See you next time.